and welcome to the Boston College Alumni Education webinar. My name is Nicole Malika, and I am the Graduate Assistant supporting Alumni Education Programming for the Alumni Association. Throughout the webinar, you are invited to submit questions by typing them into the question box in the webinar dashboard. Your questions will be sent directly to us here at the Alumni Association and will only be viewable by us. At the end of the webinar, our presenter will answer as many of your questions as possible. Throughout the webinar, we will be asking for your participation through a series of poll questions, like this one. Please take a moment to read the question, what is your current job search status, and choose a select answer. I'll give you a moment to vote. Just a couple more seconds. All right, it looks like in our audience, about 40% of you are employed and unsure of a long-term career satisfaction. About 30% of you are employed but looking to change your career. About 10% are happily employed, and about 20% are unemployed. Now I am pleased to introduce today's webinar presenter, Pamela Weinberg. Pamela is co-founder of MYOB Moms, a company dedicated to helping women navigate work and life transitions and grow their careers. She is a career coach, a personal branding expert, and an adjunct professor at New York University, and a blogger on womenworking.com. A graduate of Brandeis University, I am happy to welcome and turn this webinar over to Pamela.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for the lovely introduction, and hi everyone who is on the webinar right now. Glad you could join us today. So as Nicole had mentioned, there will be a few different polls throughout the course of the webinar today, and from the poll that we just had, it seems as though 70% of you are currently employed, but you may not be sure of your career satisfaction, if this is really the right career for you. So you picked the right webinar to come to, because we're going to be talking a lot about that today for those of you who are looking to make a career change. So the webinar is going to go like this. We're going to talk about defining a quarter-life crisis. We're going to talk a lot about career assessment and preparation, how to sort of figure out what your next step might be. We're going to talk a bit about today's job market, what's out there, what are some hot areas, and we're going to touch on social media for the job search as well. So that is the plan for today. So does this look like you during your quarter-life crisis? We all feel stressed out and anxious at some point in our life, and this is probably, besides maybe getting into college, this is probably one of the more, can be one of the more stressful times. You may be feeling tremendous pressure at this point to sort of, quote unquote, have it all figured out. So we're going to talk a lot about that, some of the sort of myths and fallacies of what's really going on with people who are in this age and stage. So what is a quarter-life crisis anyway? This really, the definition is really about the stress that recent college grads feel after entering the real world post-college, and you don't have to be, 1 year out of college. This could be, 5 or 10 years out of college as well. Just the feeling of really being on your own for the first time, and it's a very common feeling of anxiety about being sort of self-sufficient, self-supporting, maybe for the first time in your life, and being worried that maybe you made a bad choice in your major, in your career path, in your job, and feeling stuck because of it. And we're going to dispel some of that today, because there's no such thing as being sort of stuck in a job at this age and stage. The average woman has 10 jobs in a lifetime, and the average man has over 11. So this is, very normal, and you're sort of early in your career path, and there's always room to make changes. Another feeling people get, another major source of anxiety in the quarter life crisis, is feeling as though everybody else knows what they're doing. Everybody else is so confident and so successful, and a bit of FOMO, that fear of missing out on more money, on more job stability, maybe on more fun, on better relationships. This is very normal and very curable, lots of it with time and sort of, making some different choices. So unfortunately on this call I can't do much to help you with your relationships or with having fun, but hopefully I can help alleviate some of the pressure you feel from some of the career decisions you've made. So where should we begin? So this is our career roadmap. We want to think about, what our objective is. We're going to do some research, and then we're going to formulate an action plan. So one of the first things we're going to talk about are your career objectives, or one of the first things you should think about while you're on this webinar. Are you looking for a new job? Some of you are. Which field? The same field you're in, or maybe a different field? Maybe you're not sure. That's where research comes in. You may need to research some new jobs, new careers, new areas, and find out where those opportunities are. Once you have some sort of idea of which direction you're going in, you want to chart your path and set some goals as well. So one of the first things to think about, and sometimes we get away from this. You go to college and you're really interested maybe in creative writing, but you decide, well, I don't really know if I can get a job as a liberal arts major, so I'm going to switch and major in economics or accounting. And then you graduate college and you get that job, in an accounting firm, and you say, I really don't like this. You've really maybe gotten away from what you're good at. Maybe writing was what you were passionate about and what you really are good at and what you miss in your life. So it's sort of thinking back to, the things that really made you happy, reviewing your skills and your interests. They don't always match up. You may be really good at math and really great at crunching numbers, but it may not be something that you necessarily want to do at your job. You may say, I'm doing that now. I don't really like being that back office, behind the scenes person. I really like people. I want to be interfacing with people more. Maybe I should utilize some of those skills for a sales job. You want to sort of think about what it is that you both like and are good at. You may need some more training as well in a different field, and we're going to get to that in some of the upcoming slides. Take stock of your priorities. What are your values concerning your job? What's important to you? There are always, sort of lots of things we think about when we're looking for a job. What are the most important things to you? For many of us, it's money. But sometimes it's also your work environment and working at a company that has a mission that aligns with your values. So that may mean that maybe making a lot of money is going to take a back seat to being in a place where you feel really happy. You may be willing to forego a little bit of money for more happiness and for working at a company that more aligns with your values. Location may be important to you or may not be. You may be living in the Boston area, but you may be willing to take a chance and move out to San Francisco for a different kind of a job. You want to think about that as well in looking for a job. It really helps to think about, expanding your search. If you're not sure what you're good at or what your interests are, what your strengths are, you can use some assessment tools. You may have taken some assessments before through career services, maybe when you were an undergraduate or graduate student. You may have done the MBTI test or the STRONG test, and those typically you pay for. There are lots of good assessment tools that you can get online that are free of charge. One of them that I listed here is called typefocus.com, and you can go through an assessment like TypeFocus, and it really will come out and let you know, based upon a series of questions, what fields you might be good at or might be interested in going to. So that's another great way to think about what your interests and strengths are and how they may translate into jobs. I love this one, assembling a personal board of directors. Lots of times, and especially if you're sort of going through this quarter life crisis and you may not be feeling very good about yourself, you may want to assemble a personal board of directors, people who can really tell you what you're good at. We're all really good at something. Most of us are really good at more than one thing. So you may not know if someone says to you, what are you really good at? You may just be feeling sort of down and saying, like, I don't know, I'm really not good at anything. I really can't say what I'm better at than anybody else. Ask a family member, ask a close friend, ask a colleague, ask a former boss or current boss, what do you think I'm good at? What am I the go-to person for? It may be things you don't even realize that you take for granted. You may be super organized. You may be a great organizer. You may be a terrific writer. You may have great public speaking skills. These may be things that for you come really easily and come naturally, but for others they don't. This is what makes you unique and makes you stand out. This can also help direct you towards a different career or job as well. So we're going to talk about career assessment and preparation. Now that you've had a chance to sort of, think about how you can assess some of your skills and interests and passions, let's move on to how we can relate those to our careers. So this is you can look at your quarter life crisis as an opportunity. You were unhappy enough or thinking about, needing some additional help, hence getting on the webinar. It may be a good time for you to assess, if this is a good time to make a change, to switch to a career that you're more interested in. So once you have an idea of what some of those careers are, maybe they came out of your personal board of directors, maybe they came out of your self-assessment, you're going to want to do some research on different career fields. And one of the best ways to do research are through informational interviews. So say you decided that you want to work in finance. And there's so many different, finance is a huge field, as we know. There's sales and training, there's asset management, there's private equity, and many more. How do you know which of those would be good for you? You're going to want to go on informational interviews with people who have those jobs, going through BC alumni that may be working in those fields, friends, family members. Great way to learn about what those jobs entail. And in doing so, you may realize, hey, you know what, I think in order to do that well, I may need an additional degree. You may need to think about going back to grad school depending on what your job is that you're going to be interested in. Or maybe you just want to take some classes or lectures or workshops in your interest area, either online. There's a great website called lynda.com, which is listed here, which gives fabulous online tutorials in many different fields or industries. Or you can take classes or lectures in your interest area through community colleges, through continuing ed schools. I teach at NYU SCPS, which is a School of Continuing and Professional Studies. Any of you who are in the New York area, you can definitely take a class there. Or even if you're not in the New York area, a lot of classes now are online only. They offer terrific classes in millions of different fields: public relations, marketing, real estate, finance. Great thing to do, and they do certificate programs as well. And I'm sure there are many other schools in your area that offer similar classes. You may need to get a skills upgrade. Many of you, I'm sure, have very good, computer and technology schools just based upon your age and your daily life. But there may be different technologies that are important to know for different industries that you go into, and you're going to want to learn what those are and see if you need to learn something new. You may know how to do basic Excel spreadsheets, but you may need to get more extensive training if you're going to go into a Wall Street type career. I want to mention one other resource on here called pivotplanet.com. This is a great website that allows you to try a new career. Say you've always wanted to be a chef or a restaurant owner. You can find somebody on pivotplanet.com who is willing to let you shadow them to try out a new career. It is not free, however. It does cost money to do this. And the money depends upon what the job is. But it's something to sort of look into and check out. So we're going to, Nicole, if you don't mind launching our next poll, we're going to launch the next poll, then move on.
All right, Pamela, here is poll question number 2. What type of preparation do you feel will help you make the next step in your career or career search? Please choose one. I'll give you a moment to vote. Just a few more seconds. Okay, Pamela, about 40% of our attendees chose a session with Career Center Counselor would be helpful. About 35% chose classes or workshop in my interest area. About 14% chose skills or technology upgrade, and about 10% said, I do not need any additional preparation at this time. Back to you, Pamela.
Okay, thank you so much. These numbers were super helpful, and we're going to talk at the end of the session about some resources. I'll give you some information about seeing a BC alumni career counselor, which is terrific. That seems to be something that would be very appealing. And then we're going to have some additional resources on classes or workshops. So that's terrific. So moving on, we're going to talk about a personal mission statement. And once you've thought about your objectives, as we talked about sort of at one of the first slides, creating some objectives for your search, it's a great idea to create a personal mission statement which can guide you on a course to reach your goals. And I do this with all of my clients, even if they're not looking for jobs. I believe that everybody, no matter what stage of your career, should have a personal mission statement. We should all have goals that are moving us forward towards something. So for the purposes of this webinar, many of you are thinking about potentially changing jobs. We're going to talk about a personal mission statement that will help you reach that goal of career exploration and entering into a new field. So I like to say a personal mission statement is sort of your own GPS. It really helps guide you on where to go. And as I said, if you have a goal of getting a new job or finding a new career family, how are you going to get there? There are many steps that you need to take in order to accomplish that. And having some of those steps laid out in a personal mission statement helps keep you on track. I know many of you, would like to maybe work with a career center counselor. That's a great way to also keep you on track. When I work with my clients, I give them all homework after each session so that they're accountable to somebody for moving their job search forward. Not everybody has a career counselor, so you want to be accountable to yourself, and your mission statement sort of keeps you honest. So here's an example of a mission statement that was for a client that I worked with here in New York. And you can see her mission statement is to obtain a position in development which will allow her to utilize many of the skills she's acquired through volunteer work and through her fundraising for a community center. So how is Dana going to accomplish this? So her goal is to obtain a position in development, and she wants to utilize some of the skills she already has. But she wants to also learn new skills and realizes that since she's never worked in development, it may be difficult. So she's decided to take a class in nonprofit management to learn more about what that entails and to really get the lingo down, to hopefully make some connections, to do some networking. She's also going to join a professional association to network. This is a great idea and one that I recommend to everybody. And she wants to obtain a volunteer position at a nonprofit. She's not worked at a nonprofit. She's done some fundraising work sort of on the side for her community center. But getting a volunteer position, if she's currently not working, or even if she could do it, sort of one Saturday a week, is a great way to get your foot in the door at a nonprofit and to gain experience and to build her resume. So you all can, take some time after our webinar or this evening to write your sample personal mission statement. What would yours look like? And I like to add sort of 3 things to do. And then as you do one of them, so if Dana already took her class at nonprofit management, we would add a new point in there, a new mission, so that she's continuing to move her job search forward. So this is one example of a mission statement. Many of you, if you work for a company, would have examples of your corporate mission statement. Personal mission statements are not as easy to come by, so I've listed at the bottom of the page some resources where you can find them. QuinkCareers.com and TimeThoughts.com are 2 places to find sample personal mission statements. So let's talk a bit about today's job market, which, depending on how long you've been out of the workplace, may or may not change, may or may not have changed all that much. But let's go through it anyway, so we can sort of see that there's more than one way to look at the job market. Sort of gone are the days where somebody takes one job at a company and is there for life. That really doesn't really exist anymore in this generation. So what a lot of people do or have portfolio careers, or side hustle is sort of a big millennial term. People aren't only one thing. I've worked with many different clients who have 2 different jobs that are both part-time, and maybe one takes up more time than another at certain points of the year. I've had clients who are both bloggers and photographers, both things that you can do sort of in a freelance way. I have another client who's a career coach and a marketing consultant, and he does maybe 70% of his work is marketing consulting with 2 big clients, but he went back to school and got his degree in career coaching, and he sees probably 2 clients a week as a career coach. It's something that he really loves and feels like it helps him in his full-time job as well. So you don't necessarily have to think of sort of, that one corporate job. If there are different things that you're good at, you might be able to sort of put them together to have a more flexible work-life schedule and balance. And that sort of goes into the next point about freelancers and consultants. This is something that really started pretty much back in 2009 when the economy was so bad and a lot of companies laid people off. As they started hiring again, companies really had, sort of consolidated their space, sort of did away a lot with healthcare, unfortunately. So they started hiring many more freelancers and consultants. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, there are a lot of opportunities for freelancers and consultants, even if you want to do that work while you're looking for your new job. It's a great way to sort of keep your foot in the door in a certain industry and build your resume as well. Work-life balance and diversity are things that are very important and that companies are really thinking much more about, hence going into one of the hot industries, which is corporate social responsibility. This is an area that almost every company, large and small, really thinking a lot about. It's a great area to work in if you're someone who cares a lot about the values that a company has. It's where the companies really think about how they're going to give back, how they're going to spend their money to help others, what programs they have for their employees. It's a great, really hot field. Anything green, also super popular right now. Healthcare has always been one of the more recession-proof industries, especially working for some of the pharma companies. technology, anything in technology is very hot. If you're a woman who's in technology, even better for you. The technology industry is desperate to hire women and to keep them. And the nonprofit world is also continues to hire and continues to grow. If you, I have a couple of featured resources here, which are great to help you think about industries and occupations that may match your skills. And both of these websites, the BLS.gov and ONET Online, are both government-sponsored websites. And what's great about both of them is that they actually break down the job market practically by zip code. So you can see what the hot jobs are in your area and what the hot areas are for your job. So if you are a technology person, they'll show you what areas of the country are hiring for technology, and it also gives you a lot on salary for these jobs and career paths, etc. They're both terrific websites and resources. Oops, sorry about that. I got a little ahead of myself. Okay, so preparing for your job search. So now that you have sort of have made some more strides in our plan, you want to start actually sitting down and thinking about your job search and how you're going to go about searching for those new jobs. And we covered a lot of the earlier bullet points doing research in classes and lectures. So you want to just really think about, now that you've focused on, say, technology, what other classes would you need to take in technology to get your skills up to date? So it's not as much general. It's really funneling down to being more specific, any additional degrees you might need for a specific area. You want to have your resume done and prepared. You want to include your current job on the resume, of course, any freelance jobs you've had, any skills that may be relevant. I like to have a little personal summary section at the top of a resume that someone can really eyeball and look at all of the skills that you possess and the attributes and some of the accomplishments that you have. Makes it very easy to read a resume having that up front. And then you want to line up your references. Make sure that you have people who, if you're going on job interviews, that a potential employer can call or email about you. And I tell my clients to go into a job interview having those already printed out on a sheet of paper, so you can just hand it to a potential employer should they ask. It just shows that you're very buttoned up and very prepared. Two resources for researching career paths, Vault.com and Spotlight on Careers. I mentioned, I'll go back to the finance example, how there are so many different careers in finance. I'm working with a client now who's looking into finance, and he has 3 or 4 different areas that he can go into, but may not even know the terminology and what the specific job titles are. So Vault.com is a great place to go to look at that. If you look at finance jobs, it'll break down pretty much every job title, what a bond trader does, what skills are needed for that versus a bond salesperson. So you can really get a sense of the different job families and how your skills and interests might fit into them. Networking. So really nothing more important than networking in looking for a job. 80% of all jobs are obtained through networking. That's a tremendous amount. So many of us, when we're looking for jobs, spend 80% of our time looking online, on LinkedIn or on Indeed.com, and applying to jobs randomly. That is sort of the equivalent of taking your resume, throwing it out the window, and hoping it lands in the right hands. It might, but your chances are much better. Your odds are much higher in getting a new job by spending 80% of your time going through your network. So how do you go about doing that? Know what you're looking for. Memorize your 2-minute pitch. After we've gone through this presentation, you've done some of the research, you should have an idea of what it is you want to do and be able to articulate that very well to anyone who asks. So Pamela, what are you doing right now? Well, I'm a career coach. I work in New York City. I do work with individual clients and do public speaking for groups. You want to be able to synthesize it down, distill it down into, 3 or 4 sentences so people can really understand how they can help you. Very important in networking. Give people a reason to want to help you and tell them how they can help you. Carry business cards with you. Even if you are unemployed, have business cards made up with just your name and contact information on it so that when you're in a situation where you're networking and you ask somebody for a card, they can give you a card as well. I'm sorry, you can give them a card as well. It professionalizes your job search and gives them a way to keep in touch with you as well. Follow up, keep in touch. So networking is not a one-way street, and it's not a one-touch thing. If you've included someone in your network, you've emailed them, you've met with them, make sure to follow up and keep in touch. Thank them for meeting with you. Connect with them on LinkedIn. You know they're a Boston Red Sox fan and you've read a great article about the Red Sox. Shoot them the article, hey, thinking of you, thought you would enjoy this. It's not only about what they can do for you, it's also about what you can do for them. And you'd be surprised. You may think that you're only in a position that you can help them, but you may be in a position one day where you can. So always remember that. And networking is about building relationships. It's not about, touching somebody once and never coming back to talk to them again. You want to continue to build and to network. When you have these networking meetings, these informational interviews that I spoke about before, you want to make sure to have your ask. What do you want to get out of the interview? Would you like to have somebody review your resume for you eventually? Would you like them to introduce you to somebody else within their company? Would you like them to recommend some publications or blogs or websites that you can look at? What is it that you want out of the networking meeting? Always keep that in mind as well. I spoke before when I gave my sample mission statement about professional organizations. Professional organizations are a great way to network, terrific way to meet people who are in your field, who can teach you more about what it is the field offers, and to help get you involved and give you additional knowledge about the field that you're looking to go into. Smart volunteering. So all of us at some point have volunteered for various things, whether you're in high school or college, and even in your current job, of those of you who are working, you may be volunteering for certain things in your office. Make sure to volunteer smartly. Volunteer in a way that can build new skills for yourself and sharpen your existing skills and make connections. Volunteer in the area in which you want to work. If you want to work in the art world, volunteer in an art gallery giving tours on a weekend so you can learn more about the art business and get your foot in the door there. You want to make sure to volunteer in a way that suits your skills and builds additional skills. It really helps to build your resume as well, and I've had many clients who have volunteered at organizations and have ended up getting hired by those same organizations. A foot in the door, you give employers a free look at you, and if you do a good job, they're going to want to keep you on and potentially offer you a job. It's a great way to make a career change, starting it with a volunteer position. If you want to get some good ideas for where to volunteer, I've listed idealist.org, which is a great volunteer. Gives you some great volunteer opportunities, also by zip code or by city. So a terrific way to get some great volunteer opportunities. So we're going to move on now to talk about social media for job search. And Nicole, if you can launch our last poll question now, that would be great.
All right, Pamela, I'll launch the last poll question, and at this time I also want to remind attendees that you can still submit questions through our dashboard. So here's our third and final poll question. Which of the following social media outlets do you use most often in the job search? Please choose one, and I'll give you a moment to answer. Just a couple more seconds here. All right, Pamela, our results. 80% of our attendees use LinkedIn most often, followed by 1% for Twitter, 6% for Facebook, and about 13% for another platform of social media. Back to you, Pamela.
Okay, thank you. Well, no surprise that 80% are utilizing LinkedIn. I'm very happy to hear that. So you have to be on social media today in order to be in the job search market. And one of the things I would just recommend doing is to Google yourself. See what comes up when you first Google yourself. And what you would like it to be would be your LinkedIn profile. So you want to make sure that that is something that comes up front and center, and by giving your LinkedIn profile some care and feeding and being active on LinkedIn, that really helps you get it up there in search engine optimization. So we're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn. I know most of you are utilizing it, and I'm going to give you a quick overview. There is a full hour-long session on LinkedIn on the BC alumni website. It's bc.edu/alumni-ed, and that resource is listed at the end of the presentation, so you can look at that webinar if you want to get a full hour on LinkedIn. I'll just go through some quick tips. You want to have a great profile. You want to have a good photo that's business appropriate, you know, a headshot with nothing in the background, not cluttered. You want to have a creative headline. The LinkedIn default is your job title. And I like to make a headline a little more creative, something that really talks more about you, like, you know, marketing professional, so that people know exactly what you do, not just where you work. Professional summary, as someone who specializes in personal branding, I love the professional summary on LinkedIn. I think it's important that everybody have one, so you can really tell a bit more about yourself and how you got where you are today. The nice thing about LinkedIn versus a resume is that it's much more personal. It really, and it should be more personal. It should be authentic and really sound like you. It really can help you come to life, and your LinkedIn summary can really build in some of your personality. You want to have the right keywords in your LinkedIn profile, both in your professional summary and in the skills section. If people are sourcing for jobs on LinkedIn, they're using programs, computer programs that do that, and they're going to be looking for certain keywords. How do you know which keywords they're looking for? You're going to look on different job descriptions. If you're looking for a job as a production coordinator, go on to LinkedIn, look at 10 different job listings for production coordinator and see what words they're using. You're going to find the same words listed over and over and over again. Make sure that those key words are in your profile section, so that if a recruiter is searching for somebody, they'll come up with you. You want to have recommendations on LinkedIn. I recommend one per job listing. You want to connect, just make it a rule to connect with people on LinkedIn, your former bosses, your colleagues, peers, people you met at networking events, people you're meeting, at alumni associations. Follow companies where you would like to work. If you want to work in commercial real estate, you should be following all the commercial real estate companies in your area that you'd be interested in working in, so that way you get up-to-the-minute news on those companies. Utilize the search features on LinkedIn for jobs and connections. Great to connect for your BC Alumni Association as well, and join groups. Many groups on LinkedIn, too many to even name or count, but you should join groups that are in the industry that you're interested in moving to. Facebook. So very few of you are utilizing Facebook for job search, and it's actually a great resource for job search because your friends on Facebook are usually very different than your friends on LinkedIn. It's typically a totally different area. So your friends, quote unquote, on Facebook are people who you may not have seen since the 6th grade. So they may not know what field you're in or that you're in the job market, and you probably don't know where they're working currently or where their brothers and sisters or parents are working currently. So you may be looking for a job in commercial real estate and not realize that one of your friends, brothers or sisters are, work in HR for one of the big real estate firms. How would you figure that out? Through Facebook. There are 2 great resources, inthedoor.com and branchout.com, that help you find where your Facebook friends are currently employed and whether or not there are job openings at their companies. They're both really cool resources and websites to look at. So I would definitely check out Facebook in that way for job search. And you may just want to throw up a status update at some point that says you're looking for a job in commercial real estate. Anyone know anyone who works there? And you're going to get responses. I get as many clients from my Facebook page as I do from my LinkedIn profile. I definitely utilize my Facebook for business, and it's paid off for me. You want to join groups and fan pages for companies that you're interested in working for. Almost all the companies now have fan pages. It's a great way to show your interest in the company and to get some inside scoop on what's going on there as well. And you want to always make sure that your privacy settings are as you'd like them to be on Facebook. As we know, Facebook changes their privacy rules all the time, so it's worth it to just go back and make sure your privacy settings are as you would want them to be. So very few of you are using Twitter for job search, and I'm so happy to be able to talk to you a little bit about it. There's also an overview. There's a full hour-long session on Twitter also on the BC alumni website, so you'll be able to look at that as well. But I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just tell you why Twitter is so great for job search. I always say to people with Twitter, it's not so much what you say, but it's who you follow. So you really want to find out who the top tweeters are in your field. If you're interested in commercial real estate, who's tweeting in the commercial real estate space? Which of the bloggers are tweeting? Which of the people who work at companies are tweeting? And you want to start following them to see what's going on there. Every company has all the large companies have social media departments now where it's people's full-time job as to work with social media to let the public know what's going on at these companies. So if you are following your top companies on Twitter and you have the opportunity for a job interview, you will be the smartest candidate in the room, because you will have read that morning on Twitter that the CEO just announced certain earnings on CNBC. You will be extremely up to date and knowledgeable on what's going on. Twitter is the best way to really stay on top of certain companies. And it's very intuitive. So if you start following, 3 different commercial real estate firms on Twitter, they'll say, if you like these, you may want to follow these now. So it's a great way to get, to get up to date. I've listed a couple of resources here. If you want to look for jobs, twitjobsearch.com. If you're good at social media, a lot of companies who are looking for social media people post their jobs on Twitter. Makes sense. And if you're looking for companies and people to follow within any industry, there's a great website called wefollow.com, which lists like the hospitality industry, finance, aviation. It lists all industries, and then you can click on the industry and it'll tell you who to follow in those industries. Great way to get up-to-date Twitter information. If you get very involved with your social media and want to start tweeting and really want to post on your LinkedIn status updates, there's a great website called hootsuite.com, which allows you to manage your social media very easily. So we're going to go to our final tips on conquering your quarter-life crisis, and we're going to leave some time for resources and questions. So going back to the beginning of the presentation, we talked about setting some goals for yourself. We did that, sort of in our personal mission statement, and thinking about what are some of our skills and accomplishments and how they're going to fit into our job search. So if our goal is getting a job, we talked a lot about doing that. The aspect of managing time is one that's super important. And for those of you who are not working, or those of you who are working but want to look for a job, it's even more of a challenge to manage your time, because how do you look for a job while you're at your job? So you really have to be very efficient in managing your time. Set time aside each week to meet your goals. Whatever your goals are for the week, for the month, set time aside, whether it's every Saturday morning from 10 to 12, or every Tuesday night from 8 to 10. Make sure, put it into your calendar, keep yourself accountable. That's the hardest thing probably about sort of working on your own, is that accountability. So make yourself accountable to managing your time. And with that combination of managing your time and setting and reaching your goals, you will get the job you want. Those are the two most important factors. So here are some of the resources that I spoke about today. Many of them I mentioned. Two things that I want to point out are that BC alums are able to access services from the Career Center up to 5 years following graduation. So that's terrific news for many of you who are on the webinar today. And I want to point out two books, two resources that many of my millennial clients have found very helpful. One is 20-something, 20-everything by Christine Hassler, and another one is Conquering Your Quarter-Life Crisis by Alexandra Robbins. Both of these definitely talk about careers, but they also talk about a lot of the other things that I spoke about at the beginning of the webinar as well, that feeling of anxiety, helplessness, feeling like you're not good enough, feeling that you haven't done, as you're not as successful as other of your friends, relationship management, all of the above. So those are some terrific resources for the quarter life crisis help and management. So we have about 13 minutes, I guess, for questions. So I am ready, Nicole.
All right, Pamela, we have a good amount of questions that have already come in, which is great. The first question: BC has a weekend retreat program called Halftime, which helps undergrads focus on their career options. Are there any overnight or weekend retreats that you know of that focus on young adults looking to refine their career options and life choices?
That's a great question, and there are not any that come to mind. But if I may be able to do a little bit of research and get back to you. I know that there are some, sort of day-long programs or workshops that do this, but overnight retreats I haven't heard of. But I'm going to jot that down and see if I can find any, and if I do, I'll send them to you.
All right, great. And just for the alums on the call today, we are in the process of offering a halftime style retreat through the Alumni Association for young alumni sometime later this spring. So just keep that on your radar. All right, and for the second question, Pamela, this states, I enjoy my job. I'm interested in knowing how to make my billing specialist or office manager position more lucrative for both myself and our practice. Do I need an advanced degree? And the direction I'm aiming for is healthcare management or administration and finance. So what are your thoughts on this?
I'm sorry, can you just read the beginning of the question again?
Sure. So this alum is interested in knowing how to make his or her billing specialist and office manager position more lucrative for both myself and our practice. Does this alum need an advanced degree?
This is a great opportunity for this alum to speak to people within his or her company who maybe have the type of job that he or she wants, or speak to people outside of the company who have that job to find out what their career path was. Did they get any additional degrees? What type of experience do they feel is helpful? What kind of workshops or webinars could a mentor recommend to them? And maybe by joining a professional association, that could also give some of these, answer some of these questions in a more specific way, based upon that company and career path.
All right, great. Thank you. Our next question. You mentioned several job areas that are hot in hiring. I don't feel like my skills and experience necessarily match these fields. How do I break into them?
Well, you may want to go onto one of those websites that I mentioned, like ONET online or the Occupational Handbook, and read about what areas are hot, which fields are hot in your area. I wouldn't say that you necessarily need to break into the hot fields if it doesn't fit your skill set. But if you think about an area like green jobs, there are so many things you could do working at a green company. If you're an accountant, you could be an accountant. If you're an attorney, you could be an attorney. If you're in marketing, you could do marketing. So I think you need to sort of think, broadly about, a field like that. Yes, technology is definitely specific. Pharma is pretty specific, but, an area like green jobs, there are many companies that are green companies that would have the same job families that any big corporation would have. And the same, by the way, with financial firms. A lot of times we think about finance as just being people who are, number of people who are economics majors, but financial firms have people who are in HR, people who are in marketing, people who are doing the social media. So it's also helpful to sort of think out of the box a little bit.
Great advice. Thank you. Next question in terms of references. Who makes a great reference? Is it better to list someone with a high title like a VP, or should it be someone who knows my work well but is more of a mid-level employee?
Definitely great to list somebody who knows your work well, and especially who could vouch for your work in the type of job that you're looking for, who could really talk about your experience in the area in which you're going to. Like if you are someone who is a meeting planner and you're looking for, a higher level job, in meeting planning or something along that area, you want to be able to have somebody give you a reference who can vouch for your skills in that area. So better to have somebody who knows you well.
Great, thank you. And during your information, you mentioned that 80% of jobs are being found through networking. Was there a source for this figure, or where did this come from? This alum is just very interested in this statistic.
It's definitely a statistic that's sort of out there. I don't remember exactly where it emanated from, but if you sort of Google how many jobs, what the percentage of jobs are gotten through networking, I'm sure you'll find the original source. I mean, it's a figure that's just pretty widely used within HR and career coaching area.
And on the same line as networking, can you give specific examples of the best ways to network in your opinion? Do you recommend one-on-one opportunities, networking events, events that are put on through an alumni association? What are your thoughts on this?
I definitely recommend one-on-one networking, and the best type of networking is one where you're introduced by somebody who mutually knows both of you. So, those are the kind of, that's the kind of way that's much easier to build relationships if you're introduced by someone who's a mutual friend or mutual acquaintance or mutual business associate of both parties. To me, that's the most effective kind of networking because everybody has a little bit of skin in the game and a stake in making sure that it works out.
Sure, great. Next, in terms of LinkedIn, if you're unemployed, how should your LinkedIn profile look? Don't you automatically lose value if your current job is left blank?
You want to put your most recent job as your job, and instead of it saying, May 2013 to present, it will say May 2013 to, June 2014. So it's not going to be blank. It'll just have, have an end date. And then I talked about doing that special, profile headline. You don't want to use your default that you're, a production coordinator at so-and-so company. You want to create your own headline saying, production coordinator. So you want to just, sort of create a description for yourself as a potential employee.
And on a similar thought, do you have any advice on explaining a gap in your resume?
yes, I work a lot with women who've taken time off from their workplace and are going back, and they often or almost always have gaps in their resumes. And the best way to handle it is to just be direct. I took some time off to do X, Y, and Z, and I am back in the workplace now, committed to getting a job in marketing communications.
All
Just be very direct and upfront about it without apology.
Great advice. And this last question, in terms of professional networks or professional boards, are there any websites or resources that alums can use to search for those networks or boards that they could join?
That alums could use to search or network for, I mean, you could go into, if you go onto LinkedIn and you go under interests, there's a tab that says alumni. So you can go to that tab and you would come up with Boston College, and then you see where different BC alumni work, which fields they work in, which companies they work in, and that's a great way to network within your alumni group. If there are certain boards or companies or nonprofits that you're interested in, you might be able to find people that way.
All right, thank you, Pamela, for answering those questions. I'd like to invite you now to share your contact information with the alums on this call.
Okay, so this is my contact information. If you have any questions that you weren't able to ask on the webinar, feel free to email me at pamela@pamelaweinberg.com. Feel free to also connect with me on LinkedIn and to follow me on Twitter if you're interested in getting updated information. I typically tweet about anything career-related, careers, personal branding. I typically give resources and etc. So if you want to up your Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter as well. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have as also.
Okay, a big thank you, Pamela, for leading our webinar today. We really appreciate it. For the alums on the call, we have a few final details. You will receive an email later today asking you to complete a short online evaluation of the program. We appreciate your feedback as we design future offerings. This webinar has been recorded and will be available to view online within the next week. The PowerPoint presentation will be available immediately after the webinar at bc.edu/alumnied. And finally, our next career webinar will be held on Thursday, March 5th. We'll focus on navigating the elder care maze. You can also register on our website, bc.edu/alumnied. Thank you, Pamela, once again for a wonderful webinar, and goodbye from Boston College.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.